and it's interesting. It's interesting for all kinds of reasons, just because it's a really good, really nice song and all. And there's some parts of it that, in the finger picking part, obviously, that just are timing challenges that I've kind of worked through,
Hmm.
and I'm at kind of the 1 out of 3 thing.
Okay.
But I also found that, and maybe this is true with all these songs, but um, I can play through this thing, stay in time, and if I ignore my own mistakes, it actually sounds pretty good. You know, I mean, because I'm getting most of it.
Yeah.
I'm getting 90% of it.
Yeah.
But if I don't, if I commit to not retracing my steps, or just but obviously trying to do the right thing and all. But every once in a while, I tend to miss things or and all. But it actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah, you know, that's John Prine's approach to playing things. It's and if you really looked carefully at many of his live performances, there are times when he goes to the wrong chord and he just fixes it like right away, and the song goes on and you don't even notice. So if your focus on anybody was ever to like be the mistake police and see if anything happened that they didn't expect to happen or didn't want to happen, you'd be surprised how many of those things there are that you just never see because that's not what you're looking for when you're listening to somebody play something. You're
Right,
listening to the
right,
story. The all
right,
the picking is like way in the background. It's like you're not trying to analyze what he's doing in every single measure with his picking patterns or anything.
right, right.
Until we start like studying the song and trying to, like yesterday I had a lesson with Sandy, and she was working on a song that had a short little guitar break in the middle that she just wanted to pull out of the song. It's like, hey, show me how to do that or something like that,
Yeah,
and so that jumped out at her as there was a short little instrumental, but it was just messing around with the chords a little fancier than you would if you're just strumming it.
right, 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 right. Like, and one thing that I've also found in this particular song, right at the beginning and the sort of the opening G, there's that particular pinch right there. I
Hmm.
find myself half the time doing it like that, and then sometimes I'm doing it like that.
Okay, so you do want to
Yeah,
get consistent about that. You want that to be your ring finger.
yeah, I know that, but I find I don't know, maybe it's, but I think about these things when it happens, so it's actually they seem to be productive mistakes,
Sure.
self-correcting kind of things,
Hmm.
So ah,
Yeah.
No, that's yeah.
Um, yeah, but you're keeping the timing is staying really good. You're keeping the bass notes all, so the rhythm is good. That's really good. The bass notes are a little sketchy at times, um,
Yeah.
particularly on the D chord. Go to
Uh-huh.
D, because what's happening on D is you're rarely getting to the third string as a bass note. You're getting a lot of times you're hitting the fourth string like 4 or 5 times in a row in the bass. So the alternating is not really happening much on the D chords. So we want to be going from 4 to 3. Yeah.
Okay.
And then part of that is because I think also what you're not switching to the D position of fingers where these two fingers move to the top two strings. Like you're
Right.
still a lot of times when you're on D, you're still using these two fingers
Yeah.
on the first and second string, and that makes it hard for your thumb to get to the third string because it has to get played now right next to your second finger, and this just has to stay out of the way.
Yeah.
So, um, so yeah, do just a real normal picking pattern on a D chord, like that would start with a pinch with your second finger. Yeah, this pattern. So that's pinch with your second. Yeah, just try it, and then make sure your first finger play comes in next on the second string.
Okay.
Almost. Wait, just do one measure and then stop. I think the last bass note wasn't right again. Try it again.
Okay.
Okay. So now the bass is getting a little sketchy. Sometimes you got the fifth string first.
No.
That's right. Yeah. So you want to get really consistent with that. That you can do that like 100 times in a row and make it and nail it every time. Um,
Okay.
and then actually what we might do is run through another progression that uses a couple of other chords, because so like in Hello in there and a lot of the other finger picking songs we're kind of doing some variations on different picking patterns. Like we're not like I would call this is like the first finger picking pattern I want anybody to learn other than like House of the Rising Sun arpeggio. Like
Right.
go to a C chord
Yeah.
and do the same thing except now these two fingers will be on the third and second string,
Right.
and then your thumb will just be five and four back and forth.
Okay.
Okay, do that.
Okay.
But start with a pinch still.
Oh. Am I? Let's see.
Yep.
I gotta remember what we're doing. We're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So see how that's exactly what we were just doing on a D chord, just on different strings now, right?
Right. Right. Right.
And
Right.
then the variation though we'd bring in on a C chord would be to have that pinch not be the second string, but be the first string. So now change that first pinch to your ring finger on the first string.
Okay.
And then yeah. Yeah. Okay, and now try that without looking, but listening to make sure it sounds exactly like that. Like so this is how you check this is like did it sound right? Did you hear the same melody note twice? If you did, it wasn't right, right? Because
Right.
we got each one gets played only once. And
Right.
so you really got to be able to do this not by eye, but by ear.
Yeah. Right.
Okay? Yeah. So, um, now go to a G chord and do the same thing. The only thing that's going to be different here is the first bass note. So now the bass note's going to be now we're going to be doing 6 and 4 in the bass,
Right.
right? But you still want to listen to those high notes and make sure that they stay in that same order. So try it on G.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if you had some songs in mind you wanted to work on, but I think I'd kind of like to work on a couple of drills more like this to get them to where you're like completely subconscious and you don't even have to think about them anymore.
Okay.
And I actually have two songs in mind that go like this, but they're really just little chord progressions to work on changing these up. Um,
Okay.
one of them is the first thing we do is the exact pattern you just did there on D, C, and G
Yeah.
which so there's a slight change on each one, right? On the D, it's only two fingers. On the C, you go to three and you change bass notes and you start the pinch here. And then on G, you change to another the sixth string in the bass, right?
Okay.
So if I were to run through those three chords and then come back to D, it will sound like this. I started recording this by the way too, so this would be like the important part of what we're going to do because this is
Okay.
like this exercise then. And again. And what we'd want to do is get to where you could whip through that pretty quickly, and have it be really accurate. And this chord progression is actually one I used to teach people all the time back when I was young, and it was a young song. I'm sure you'll recognize it. I don't know what key we'd do it in. If I were a carpenter and you were a lady, would you marry me anyway? Would you have my baby? Well, anyway, about 30 years ago, I stopped showing that song to anybody because it's just such a sexist piece of crap. But it's or it's not it's been not politically correct for a really long time.
Yeah. 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 Right. Right. Right.
But it's still a cool progression, and it's a great one. So that was just D to C to G and back to D, and every time something changes. So I mean, so let's go back and do that pattern again on D.
Okay.
And remember, you got it. So second finger plays the first string here, right?
Right. 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 Yeah. Okay.
Good. Yeah, that was exactly it. Yeah. Then switch to your third finger. Right. No? right. There you go. And then switch, yeah. Oh, you know what? This is my doctor. Hang on a second.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello?
Hi, good morning. Can I speak to Neil? This is Jennifer calling from Dr. Magender's
Yeah,
office.
hi Jennifer. It's Neil. I'm still planning on coming in today at 2. Is that still good with you guys?
Okay, this was just a courtesy call to let you know that your lab results are in, okay? And if
Oh.
you wanted to still come in for an appointment, you're welcome to. Or if you'd like for him to call you, it's your choice.
Oh, I'd be just as fine not coming in and talking to him on the phone. So yeah, if he could call me around 2, that would be great.
Okay, so I will go ahead and inform him to do so, okay?
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you, Neil.
I-
And this number will be okay, the 408-309-8880?
That's where I'll be. Yep.
Okay,
All
I
right.
will go ahead and let him know. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, even better. Don't have to go into the doctor now. So,
Did your doctor post them on a?
well, actually, I think I have access to them. This is the one that what they're checking is what's called the C-reactive protein, which is the level of infection that might be still in my body. And for the last 6 months, back when I first got on this thing, it was like it's supposed to be under 10, whatever the unit is, right?
Yeah.
And like the first time they took it, it was like 32, which is like knocking on death's door, right?
Yeah.
And then after like a couple weeks of IV treatments,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
came down into the like 14 range or so, and they said, okay, well, we're headed in the right direction. And then finally, by the time I was about to stop, which was about 7 or 8 weeks into of treatments, and this is again 3 times a day for 90 minutes a time at 8 hours apart exactly, or within a half an hour. So it was pretty inconvenient. It was down in like the 8-9 range, and they said, okay, well now we're good. But then like 6 months ago, it was like at 1 or 2, which is, and so I'm hoping if it's still at 1 or 2, which, and I could look this up. I think if they've got the results, I can find them online probably too. He'll probably say I could stop the antibiotics, but I'm not sure I want to. It's kind of like I'm feeling like,
yeah. Don't want to see it go the other way.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So,
well, it's funny, once you sometimes some of those things are um, in the if you don't if you're taking something, it's like you can't stop it, kind of thing. Especially, I had a AFib
oh yeah,
deal, like and sort of right out of the blue, out of nowhere, and which I attributed initially because we were training. I was going on a cycling trip in Europe. This was about 15 years ago. Going on a cycling trip in Europe, and so we were all heart rate monitors and had all the whole program, had a cycling coach and all this kind of stuff.
yeah,
And so I'm keeping dramatically, keeping records of everything.
right.
And I noticed that every time I ride by the corner of Olympic Boulevard and Tice Valley, which is over toward Walnut Creek,
Okay.
all of a sudden my heart rate monitor would be, so that's 3 miles into the ride. That's just warming up. It's actually slightly downhill to there. Just
Okay.
getting warmed up. And my heart rate would just go crazy.
Wow.
I go out, and so all this is going on during the training, and everything else was just fine. The whole rest of the thing. Go to Europe. We're going to climb on day 2. We're in Provence. So we're in southeastern France, basically down by the Rhone River. We're going to climb Mount Ventoux, the
Okay.
giant of the Ponts, and it's like a it's a mythical sort of climb for everybody, and it's one of these climbs where once you start up, there's never a flat spot,
Mm.
and you're going from a little town called Bedouin up through, then you go up when you hit the tree line, then all of a sudden there's a series of switchbacks that goes up to the top, and it's like a moonscape up there. So it's really crazy, but anyway, I am going up this thing, and I sort of got the right pattern, and my wife and we're sort of in sync in terms of our cycling, but I was not keeping up, not keeping up. And so our agreement is, well, this is the same on all hills. If you're climbing and you're feeling good, just keep going. Don't stop and wait for me. And so I'm plodding up there. I finally get up there half an hour after she and my daughters, everybody else was on top. My son had actually gone up earlier, climbed the top, dropped down the backside, climbed it from the other side, which is just crazy, but and comes down. But so later, fast forward, do the whole rest of the trip. Fast forward, I have on the day that we come back, I have my annual annual dermatology appointment. And sort of by law, the dermatologist, I guess all the doctors like that, they have to take your blood pressure.
Right.
And it takes my blood pressure, and it's way out of the box. And that's another thing. I'm totally in control of all that before. Totally in control. Always in really good numbers, and all totally out of the box. And he's worried, so he sends me to my primary physician, who he's surprised that he's seeing me.
Right. Why are you here?
I go in there. They hook me up. They do an EKG, and I'll never forget this. This is the sign. So the girl comes back in after she's run the machine, and she goes, "Oh, doctor wants me to run it one more time. Just something." And I figure, oh, there's something wrong here. And it turns out that I'm in what's it called? Persistent atrial fibrillation. Totally out of sync.
Right.
At this point, totally out of sync. And I told my doctor, I said, I was training, and here's what the pattern was, and here's what I did, and all this kind of stuff. And I attribute this jump in my heart rate when I get to the corner of Olympic and Tyspula to overhead power line interference. So that's the rationalization for the whole thing, which of course turned out to be just totally a rationalization. So the end of the story is I have to go get cardioverted, which basically is
paddles, huh?
They knock you out. You're not awake for this.
Right.
And all, but so it puts you back into what they call sinus rhythm. And so I'm back in sinus rhythm, and I've been in sinus rhythm every single day since then, although I now check it and all. But I take this stuff that I have no idea how you can take something that affects the rhythm of your electrical system, but I do.
Wow.
And
What is it? What's it called?
It's called flecainide.
Okay.
FLECAINIDE. Flecainide.
Okay.
And no idea how, I just can't figure it out. I mean, I took enough science, but I can't figure that out. But it's one of these things where once you start taking it, it's like, well, we can't take you off of this because you might drop back into AFib, or they have these other things. It's like, God, so I don't want to go back. I don't want to do that, so I'll just take it. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Long story about nothing there. But.
Wow, no, that's interesting. Yeah.
Nope, gotta go to here.
Right. Quite. Not quite. The bass. Second bass note. Right, right. You weren't getting that. Yeah, not quite. Could you hear that those last couple ones weren't right?
Yeah, I think was I
You were getting the second string twice, and you weren't getting the third string at all. That was right. Yeah. So that was wrong. Could you hear that?
yeah, I
Okay.
heard that.
And right there, the last bass note was wrong. Right. Good. Yeah. So one other thing, kind of along these lines, that I wanted to mention when you were playing through "Hello" in there, um, especially especially with this type of finger picking pattern. Every time you go to C, and well, the same, not G is not the same. Make sure to get the bass note on first. You're in the habit of slapping down the whole C chord at once. And if you try to put your fingers down, one at a time, starting with your third finger, and so even practicing this, just going from D to C and only going to the pinch, at which point you don't even have the other fingers down. It'll look like this. And these are still waiting to go down. Just because when you do put everything down at once, especially if you try to, with a little bit of panic, if you try to do it fast,
Right.
there's about a 60% chance one note is not going to be clear. And it could be an open string because you're touching an open string with how you fingered it. But if you carefully place each finger as, in the order you're going to play them, which is really just the bass note first, try that once, going from D to C.
Okay.
Careful, no. Now, don't forget, what finger we're going to use for that pinch on the D chord?
Oh,
Right. Then on the C, grab just the bass note and your third finger right after you finish that. Yeah. Okay. So we're sort of, it might feel like we're taking a step backwards here into really I really want you to kind of master the technique and not have it be so random that, okay, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and if it's close, that's good enough. But if we just get a lot better control over your right hand, it'll really open the door to much more, like had we spent time doing this 6 months ago, or before we even ever talked about Vincent, everything
yeah.
that happens with your right hand in Vincent would have been just really easy. You would have never had a problem like using the wrong finger or anything in there. So what we kind of want to do here is build a better base of
Okay.
the right hand technique. And so this pattern, there are like 3 songs that are good practice for this. This progression to, well, actually there's 4 or 5. I'll send you a thing with other recommended, because I think what I'll do is I'll send you a list of my other favorite kids songs too that you can but so this pattern we're doing here that we're using in If I Were a Carpenter, or at least this progression, D, C, G, D. The good thing about those 3 chords is those are the only 3 different patterns we have. Either you're playing the bass notes for a D chord, you're either playing 4 and 3 in the bass, or 5 and 4, or 6 and 4. That's the only variations, right? And then we're doing the same thing with your fingers in every one. So we're just getting used to kind of the bass line place here. And so actually any song that used, oh, this is the doctor again. Hello?
Hi, Neil. This is Jennifer
Yeah.
from Dr. Magenta's office. He just gave me a call, and he was saying that he doesn't just need to go over the labs with you. It's also because of your prosthetic knee and the infection.
Oh, okay.
So I believe he wants you to come in for a visit for both those things.
Okay,
So
great.
do you mind?
No,
Okay,
that
so 2
sounds good.
o'clock?
Yeah, because I
Okay,
forgot.
we'll see you
I
then.
do have a lot of swelling in it, and I thought, nah, I'm gonna want him to see this, so that's okay. Okay.
There you go.
Yep, I'll
Okay,
be
good
there at 2.
idea.
Okay. Thanks,
See you
Jennifer.
then.
Bye.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
Um, so like any progression that uses these 3 chords is great, or at least one of each of these types of chords. Like even now the John Prine stuff and things that we've looked at, again, a lot of he has these kind of synchromatic, anyway, whatever word
Yeah.
he's got his like favorite set of patterns that
Yeah.
are kind of limited by the fact that he only uses one finger. We've talked about that, and that's why he has the 3rd string in the bass on a lot of chords, because he only wants to be playing his 1st string on other things. So some of the songs that we've looked at have very specific things that are kind of unique to the person, whether it's Townes Van Zandt or John Prine or whoever.
Yeah.
And so if we get a better, what I've been talking about, better foundation of all of technique, we'll be in really good shape. So the another song and a slightly different pattern. Play a C chord. Oh, we talked about Dust in the Wind?
I think we've talked about it. Yeah.
Okay, because it's the same thing you've been doing with one addition, and that is it doesn't end with the bass note. After the last bass note, it plays the 1st finger again. So the pattern in Dust in the Wind is this. The pattern we've been doing is this. I'm sorry, we've been doing this. Right, that's what we've been talking about for the If I Were a Carpenter pattern.
Right.
Dust in the Wind has the whole introduction is played on a C's and A minors, but the pinch is always the 2nd string. It doesn't use the 1st string at all. So it would be the alteration that we tried actually a few minutes ago, just doing this. Basically what we do on a D chord, but moved over a set of strings for a C chord, right? But it has one extra thing, and that is it plays this finger again at the end just before the next pinch. You hear that? Ba-bum. That's from the and of 4
Yeah.
into the pinch on 1,
Okay.
right? And then what happens with the so try that once on the C chord, pinching the 2nd string. Your 1st finger just wasn't. Yeah, there you go. And then the pinch right on top of it. I mean,
Okay.
so try multiple. That was it though. That was it. And now just try multiple measures.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, actually, one more thing. Now, since we're talking about Dust in the Wind, what happens is there are 4 measures of C, but in every measure, the note on the 2nd string changes. To open, to a D on the 3rd fret, and then back to C. So in the 4 measures, you cycle through 3 different melody notes, going from C to B to D, and then back to C. Then it goes to A minor, and that cycle of 3 notes continues in the same order, which means now it's going to be B first.
Right.
So it'll be open, then D, then C, then B again, then back to a C chord, and now in the melody cycle we're on D. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
It's a little confusing how what happens is we're changing chords every 4 measures. I'm sorry, every measure, but we have
Right.
4 measures of the same chord, right? But the 3 melody notes are cycling in a series of 3. So
Okay.
so you actually always end with the same melody note you started on,
Okay.
And then when you change chords, you're like in a different place in that cycle than you were in the other cycle. In other words,
Okay.
but you could print up the tablature to this and take a look at that. But one of the goals with this one, and I have one other song I want to talk about too quickly, and that is or another pattern. But so here's what Dust in, now that might have sounded. Dust in the Wind is really fast. So when you hear it on the record, it's kind of like it's hard to hear that that's well. When you heard it slowly, it's hard to hear that when I play that fast, it'll sound like this. Okay, because
Yeah.
it's fast, you know. And our goal would be to try to get it that fast someday, to where your fingers can just rip through that like there's nothing to it. Okay, that's probably a 6-month project, you know. Um, but um, and then the other pattern is what happens in Landslide. So Landslide uses 3 really easy chords, and have we talked about this one at all?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't
This is
think
the Fleetwood Mac song. Do you know what song I'm talking about?
yeah, yeah, I know the song. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say I can't sing it here. I could probably sing it open, but this is actually where they play it. This is where Stevie Nicks sings it. But it's a pattern that has no pinches. So play a C chord, and it would just be this: thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb.
So thumb, index.
Then the other thumb. Then alternate the thumb. No, alternate, different bass note for the next thumb. Your thumb's going to be going to the 4th string next.
Right. Okay. It's thumb, index, thumb, middle,
Yep, and then thumb, index again,
thumb.
and then the thumb. That's it. Okay.
Okay.
So we just had your thumb just alternated between the two notes,
Uh-huh.
and then your fingers just played in between just this one, then this one, and then this one, and that's it.
Okay. So there's nothing on the end of 4.
Right. Nothing on the end of 4.
Okay.
Not quite. Didn't finish it. You needed one more bass note to finish it.
I needed that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this runs through a really, yeah. This is a really simple chord progression. It just goes from and we never change strings. We never do anything else down here. There's only 3 chords involved. It's C, G with B in the bass. So you just need a B on the 5th string and a D up on the 2nd string. Yeah. And then the same pattern. Try that. Yeah. And then, yeah, then A minor 7. Just 2 fingers, right? A minor 7. So, yeah, just like a C chord without the C.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then back to the G with B. It always uses that G with B in the bass between the C and the A minor 7.
Am I starting?
5th string in the bass.
Oh.
Start again. Not quite. Right. That was right.
Okay. 5 and 4.
Yeah. So here's what that sounds like. Slowly. And the same kind of technique here. Watch my left hand. I worry about the bass note first and then the other note. On the A minor, the first 2 notes are open. I got plenty of time to put the back to the. I need the bass note. when I get to the C chord, I got to get the bass first and then build the rest of the chord. So when that's done faster, it sounds like this. And that's the basic accompaniment to the song. Took my love, I took it down. Climbed a mountain and turned around. But similar with the goal to Dust in the Wind is to get to where you're really consistent about doing this and can play it really fast. This is way faster than the song would ever go. But it's like you want to have that kind of command in this hand. Okay, does that all make sense?
Oh yeah, that's
yeah. So sorry to have hijacked this lesson with that. What did you want to work on?
No, that's fine. I feel good that you're telling me we need to step back and work on this kind of stuff. That's good. That's good for me. I like that.
Okay.
It all sort of fits in context with my experience of being somewhat haphazard with the way that I'm playing some of these things.
Yeah.
And so that's great that we're going to step back and learn how to, or teach ourselves how to do it correctly. So
yeah, another song I would throw in. So like these couple of songs I've talked about today, with the exception of If I Were a Carpenter, at least Dust in the Wind and Landslide. Are what I consider like essential learning for everybody. You know, whether you like the song or not, it doesn't matter. It's like it's the technique that's used in those songs is absolutely essential to everybody. Yeah. You know, but having said that, there are probably dozens, if not hundreds, of songs that serve sort of the same purpose. You know, it's just that these are the ones that I have been using in my library for 40 years. You know. Yeah. Another song that's very cool that you might not be too familiar with, or you may have heard but not thought too much about, is Brain Damage by Pink Floyd. It's this same picking as If I Were a Carpenter, and it uses all three different chord possibilities. So it's like, and the chord progression, and again, I'll write this all down when I send you the link to this as the recommended songs. Brain Damage is D with just that picking pattern we've been talking about, and then G7. So it goes like this. So what happened there was the D went to G7 a couple of times, and so you were changing from the two-finger pattern on D into the whole pattern for G, and then the D chord moved up a whole step to become an E chord, keeping the D in the bass. So there you heard this happen. Very dissonant chord, because I went to an E chord, but we still have D in the bass, right? And then that moves to an A7. A7 played with the high G in there. I don't know if we've talked about different ways of playing A7, but you normally play A7 with the G. G is the note that makes a 7 chord, right? And normally you'd put that G in, or the easy way to play A7 is this, with the open G, right? Yep. But you can also have the high G, which gives the song what I call a bigger bite. It makes this chord much more dissonant than this. So when the seventh is buried in the middle of the chord, it doesn't have the impact and the power that it has when it's the highest note. And so the way I'm playing that is with a part like a hinge bar.
Yeah.
And then, I'm uncapoed right now, but a hinge bar, and then my third finger on the high G.
Here.
Yeah.
Right? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then this would have the same pattern back to, so we could actually throw away If I Were a Carpenter or that progression, but it wouldn't hurt to practice that progression, D to C to G and back to D anyway, because this song has all the same stuff in it, and it's way more interesting chord progression.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So, and yeah, you just got to remember to shift into the two finger mode for D, and you got the fourth and the third strings in the bass. Then
Right.
when it goes to the G7s, you go back into three finger mode and six and four in the bass. Then
Right.
it's coming back to the D and the E with D, which is all our two finger stuff.
Yeah.
And then for the A7, we go into the same pattern we would have been using for C
See. Yeah.
in If I Were a Carpenter.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those three. I mean, right there, we've got my three top hitting finger picking songs: "Dust in the Wind," "Landslide," and "Brain Damage."
Great. Yeah.
And
Okay.
and just being really consistent with what's happening in all of those. "Brain Damage" doesn't need to go fast. This is a plus of most Pink Floyd songs. They generally are
Yeah.
not fast, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But "Dust in the Wind" and "Landslide," we almost also want to work on those like as speed drills. It's like once you get good at them, just keep maybe even break out a metronome and see, okay, I'm doing this at like 90 now, and next week I'm going to try to be at 110 or something like that.
Okay.
Because you could hear when I played them really fast, they're really interesting, and it's kind of razzle dazzle sound at those top speeds. You know,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
when you hear them on the records or the recordings, it doesn't jump out as like really fast necessarily because it just seems so smooth by whoever it is, Lindsey Buckingham or Kerry Livgren in Kansas.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway,
Okay.
okay, well that tied you over for a bit.
Great. That's perfect. We are. Let's see. We're in